Will you please stop bouncing around like Tinkerbell and tell me what all this is about?
I'm sorry to wake you, Aunt Sam, but this is an emergency.
Well, it better be. I can't stand all this gaiety.
Good.
Now that the big bad witch is gone, let's begin. I could hardly eat while she was here.
Agreed. Now let's eat. I'm starved. I haven't eaten all day. Yeah, without question, this one's my favorite. It just, to me, it has everything. It's taken everything we've done previously in the Bewitched Continues little series, and a lot from the original Bewitched series. Aunt Sam was a witch. I, a young warlock. Aunt Sam made the choice to live a mortal life, a life she found more fulfilling. I decided to follow in her footsteps. Her story was told on the old TV show Bewitched, and now this is my story. My name is Meryl, and this is Bewitched Continued. This is actually the throne that was used, or this is Merle's throne. It's actually a real chair that was just kind of painted to look, I guess, a little more witchly dramatic. And yeah, this is the crown. It's padded. It's always really important to us that we stay true to the characters and the storyline in the world created by Bill Asher and Liz Montgomery and all the writers. So in terms of the Bewitched continued consistencies, the last one, we tried to marry the Harry Potter world just because we felt like it's such a big part of our world right now that we actually had to kind of talk about the fact that they go together. So this one has talks about a time turner as part of the storyline, and the Bewitched continued. The second one, huge homage to that because the actors actually, the characters return and the actual actors return. So Johnny and Clarissa, Mark and Madison, the actors, actually come back. What is it? It's going to be over 10 years later, and now they're 20-something adults, still little brats and still annoying. But it was just really cool to marry those all together and bring them back. And, of course, just the whole original concept of Meryl wanting to be like his Aunt Samantha and follow in her footsteps. And that's kind of the whole storyline that gets him into trouble. Exactly like that. Here we go. One more time. Sure. Just tell me you sucked at it. Yell it at me.
You sucked at it.
Guys, let's not start the hate game. Look, I know we had a bad start.
But all I'm saying right here is, yeah. And
No, you're saying all that.
Oh.
Only sovereigns have access to an amulet that powerful.
And only sovereigns know where they're kept. The secret hiding place. So you can get it, and you can materialize it. I don't know where it is. If I did, I'd already have it. How do I know this is the real ruby stone?
The biggest thing we really want to accomplish this time is to marry an original Bewitched episode with this Bewitched Continued episode. That is such a huge undertaking. We did it before, but more simply, where Merle is just talking to Endora on the phone. Samantha isn't part of that episode, but in this part, she's the main part of the episode, and we actually combine the two. So I think it was from episode 5 where Samantha has her powers taken away, as do Uncle Arthur, Serena, and Tabitha, because they support her mortal lifestyle. So we just kind of flipped it and joined it, but this time the responsibility is Meryl's. His powers are taken away, and so are theirs, but he doesn't care because he just wants to be mortal anyway. So the witches say, that's the witches' council, who he's in trouble with for not being a good sovereign, says, good, then we're going to give you your powers back, and we're going to take theirs. And the whole episode is about Meryl trying to fix this. Trial for what? One of the things we do is we might add a little bit, but always, 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 always keeping under the umbrella vision of Bill Asher and Elizabeth Montgomery, because I have so much respect for what they created, as do so many people do still to this day. So we will add things like, in this case, Meryl, what did they call it? Some kind of penance. Reparative Penance, I think it's called. So, again, very consistent with the original Bewitched storylines, frequent ones. If he does these three things, then everything will be okay. So the entire episode is about Meryl doing these three things to make everything okay. As part of that, he interacts a lot with Samantha. That was so crazy to shoot, and the pre-production of it really is where it's just insane, because what you have to do then is find an episode where there's room to interject, then write something that makes it seamless, and then so that's all pre-production, and then in production you have to shoot it to make it seamless. And then in post-production, which is really huge, you have to make it match, because when we're talking about the 60s, everything was shot on film. The sound quality wasn't necessarily the best, but fortunately, because Bill Asher had so much experience in the industry and was just the best, I think, out there at what he did, he shot really high quality stuff. And the real buzz for me, as more of a production guy than anything, was we got our hands on a 4K it's not a print, video of this original Bewitched episode. Think about it, 4K, because if you know how this stuff works, it's shot on film, and then the film is shot. It's called telescene. But it's still film, which is shot at a different frame rate. Without getting too technical, it's 24 frames per second, where video is 30 frames per second. Film is inherently has grain to it, and because of that field rate, there's a slight flicker to it. And I only say all that stuff because to say, oh, we just popped Merle into these episodes, it's a big technical deal to do that, to make it match. I mean, you can do it and it could look cheeseball, but to do it and make it match and make it look like it's a real thing was hard, but so exciting. And of course, we shot everything in 4K, the new stuff we shot today, trying to live a mortal life.
Oh, Merle. They've always had it. Right from the very first.
But this time they really mean it. Uh-oh. Try moving the lamp, Aunt Sam. Give it a twitch. The thing that's coolest to me, again, going back to pre-production and script writing, is we wanted an episode that doesn't really look like it's from the 60s. In other words, so there can't be any green 1960s phone, those big clunky things. Can't be television. There could be nothing that makes it look like it couldn't be where we're shooting now, 2023. So, and then when we added things and we added into the storylines, we can include these things into current day. Just as an example, Meryl talks to Merle. I never know how to say his name. Is it Merle or Merle? I don't know. Someone will have to tell me. It's a little late, but anyway, Merle talks to Samantha on a cell phone, and he puts her on speaker. So we were able to lift audio from that episode, and just instead of her talking to him in person, he's talking to her on a speakerphone. And it's just really cool because it makes it look like it's happening today. Oh, hey, Aunt Sam. No, not yet, but good progress. No, I think I'm getting close. There's no use appealing the witches' counsel. Those old crones haven't budged in, 1,000 years? Wait, I'm going to put you on speaker.
But I won't ask their forgiveness. I want to plead my case before the witches' council.
No, they don't care what you have to say. We just need to wait it out.
No chance of that.
What do you mean, no chance of that? Aunt Sam, what do you mean, no chance of that? Any funny stories about shooting? I shooting's always, for me, it's very intense. When I say, not as an actor, but as the director, the producer, just making sure everything that I just talked about how things have to match and have to have a look to them, it has to be shot exactly right for that to happen. Even the microphone sound, a boom, whether we're using a boom microphone or a lavalier microphone, what the lighting's going to look like, just so everything can match. Once you nail that, when you're doing that with more than one actor, more than one person, that's where it's more challenging. When it was just me talking to Samantha, which we could just shoot on green screen, more easier, because once it's set up, everything is there and you're doing it. But when you're moving the camera around, moving mics around, every single time, it just has to be exactly perfect and exactly right. So the question was, any funny stories? Yeah, so we had a big moth or a bee or a wasp, something was flying around. I think I remember seeing it when we're shooting, but anyone who's been in this business, a helicopter or a plane could fly overhead, you can't necessarily hear it, even though the boom guy or whatever has a headphones on and everyone's watching for these things. So when we got into editing, there's this just giant thing flying around and it definitely makes a cameo, because we did 3, 4, 5 takes of each thing. I don't want to say scene, because each setup, let's say, and sometimes it was just always there, so we had to try to edit around it. We're going to try to have to cover Mark as much as you can. Mark, this is where you're like this. And keep in mind, you get to cheat this way.
Yeah.
I think we already covered that. Because you suck. But give me that.
Sure.
Okay, Talon, you ready? I mean, I really want that because you're a dick.
Okay.
Like the Book of Mormon. Jesus thinks I'm a dick.
Okay.
Jesus said I'm a dick. Is there a message in what we're trying to say? Okay, so that's a very interesting question, because we are not trying to say anything. As the script isn't trying to say anything, there is nothing like that. But Elizabeth Montgomery was big on trying to say something. So she was big on equality and treating all people the same, all that type of thing. And this episode the original episode from season 5, I think that's where it's from, hits it really hard. She gives this big speech to the Witches Council about, you're just you just don't like us because we're different. So yeah, there's a big message there. It's not really our message, it's just part of the episode that we join. But it's really cool how it all works, because of course the whole point is Merle pops in there with her while she's giving her speech, and he's standing next to her. So in that sense, yeah, there's a message there. Consider what? You have to make a reversal if I fulfill all 3.
You call this a court of justice? I call it a hall of vengeance.
It's no use. They have no choice once I do the final third. They have to be bound by witches' law. Otherwise, they'll have no mercy.
I'm not going to appeal to your mercy, just your memory.
So in terms of faith or religion and that whole thing and how it joins, I mean, that's an odd question. No offense, I don't mean that, because people ask it all the time. For example, people are now really starting to realize just how religious, for example, Agnes Moorehead was. You may know she comes from a very religious Christian, evangelical Christian family. Her whole family were Presbyterian pastors. Her dad was a Presbyterian pastor. Her uncle helped write a study Bible. And she was a very Christian person in real life. Bill told me that she brought her Bible to work. She quoted Bible verses on the set. So I'm sure they had to deal with that. She had to deal with that religion and faith thing when you're talking about witches and, part of a series like that. So here's my take on it, because yes, I was raised in the church. My mother took me to church every day. I've pretty much gone to church my entire life. I consider myself a Christian. I take my faith very seriously. And the argument would be, we're getting deep here, but if that's where you want to go, the argument would be, the Bible talks about witches and sorcery, and that's evil in a big way. But I think, for me, I always think that understanding the message of Christianity, let's say the Bible, which is where the message is, and understanding God and how all that works, is that a supernatural context to it that makes us as created beings, wow, this is getting heavy here, but okay, makes us want to understand that the supernaturalness of God and, let's say, the Christian experience. That's why I think forever there have been plays and movies and television shows about the supernatural and the magical, because that's our way as mortals, if you want to say that, wrapping our head around trying to understand the supernatural. When we were in post-editing for this, and I heard the Witches Council speaking, who speaks a lot in this, I'm like, wow, that just sounds like a God voice, which is how it was in the originals, and I think that's intentional. Corrective. Again, not that I think God is this vicious, evil, correcting God. I definitely, personally, think he's a very loving, concerned God, but there's this big, strong presence who has the ability to do supernatural things as he chooses. Bewitched and Bewitched Continues are about these people who have the ability to do supernatural things. So when you think about it, the Old Testament, there were flaming bushes, there was manna from heaven, following pillars of clouds. I mean, think about it. Think about a flaming bush, a pillar of a cloud, all these things falling from heaven, very much the kinds of things you might see in a dramatic scene in a Bewitched episode, right? So for me, it's just a kind of an exercising in understanding and wrapping your head around the supernatural. And always, 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 certainly for that time period and certainly for us, there's a positive message that comes out of it, which I think is the whole point here. But wow, that's a heavy one. I've never really talked about that, but yeah, I don't see a problem with it, or Harry Potter, all that. I get that some people do, but for me, it's just our way, our created way of wrapping our head around the supernatural and really enjoying it as we're doing it. I just want to go back to living a mortal life. What?
You are stripped of your crown and robes.
Okay, are we finished here?
And you are henceforth stripped of your powers. You are earthbound.
Well, good. Yeah, acting styles are also a challenge, and I hope we got it this time. I don't believe we ever got it right up until now. That's just me being super critical. Because in the 60s, let's say the 60s when this happened, and before, let's just say early days of television, acting was way over the top. It was almost like stage actors came in front of a camera. It's certainly that way in Bewitched. Obviously, Paul Lynde and Dora, all those. Elizabeth Montgomery, I just think, had a very rare talent, and even Dick York, to use that over-the-top acting, but go right to the point where it gets ridiculous. And when I say ridiculous, I don't mean in a bad way, but where it's obviously campy. Like I Love Lucy, which Bill Asher also directed. So again, he was part of that world. I think he knew and worked with her how to take it, and Dick and other people, right to the point where it becomes overly ridiculous. There are other magical stories of that exact same time period. I won't say the names because what I'm about to say isn't meant to be negative, but if you look at them, they definitely cross that campy line, and it goes into the chosen ridiculousness of the overacting, where it's like, it's just meant to be yuck, 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 yuck. Bewitched, it just felt real. So they kept with the style of the time, but they didn't overdo it. So to answer your question, as an actor, or all the actors, we kind of have to match, especially for me, for Merle, when I'm doing a scene with Samantha, which just sounds so weird to say, but that's what's happening. I kind of have to match that level of overacting without going over exactly what they did. That's really hard. Well, so anyway, I went like this, and then I'm like,
How do I know this is the real ruby stone?
I guess try it out. I hated that. One more time. Ready? I zapped it and go. After watching it, what would I like have people say? Mostly because I'm a production guy. Even though I loved Bewitched, my fascination with it was the production of it. I just so appreciated how Bill never went overboard, whether it was the acting or the effects. It was actually it's very hard for me and other people to keep their hands off the special effects because we have so many available today. There's so much more we can do. I think we even crossed the line a couple of times in this episode where the effects are a little more than Bill would have used. So, Bill would use explosions and clouds and smoke and all that stuff. One of the first people to use green screen as well. It just looked awful, and he would be the first to tell you that. It was the early days. But now we don't have to actually have explosives on the set. We can do that all in CG, or kind of lighting effects. We can do a lot of that in CG. But what I would love for people to take away is like, oh my gosh, that was so cool. It looked like it was really all happening at the same time. Seriously, that would be my buzz. I want you to like the story, the writing, the shooting, the editing, the directing. Hopefully you won't think about that, because if you're thinking about that, you're not enjoying it. But more than anything, for me, it would be such a buzz that people would go, oh my gosh, that looks like it was just all shot today. And because we worked with a 4K original and we shot in 4K and we have so many talented people working on this, I think people will say that, but that's my hope, that they will go, wow, super cool the way they joined those together.
Make them decide to be foster.